Hello everyone, Harry Baldock here, editor at Total Telecom, and today I'm delighted to be joined by two very special guests to talk about broadband in Ireland and in particular the National Broadband Plan. With me today are Peter Hendrick, CEO of National Broadband Ireland, and Phil Siveter, Nokia CEO of UK and Ireland. Thank you both very much for joining me.
Hi Harry, hi Phil, delighted to be here today.
Yeah, good morning Harry, good morning Peter, again, also delighted to be here.
Well, it's great to have you both. To begin the discussion, Peter, I wanted to ask you about the importance of access to good quality broadband connection in Ireland, especially given the backdrop of the pandemic that we're all experiencing right now. So how do you see the National Broadband Plan helping to end the digital divide in Ireland?
I think if we look at the National Broadband Plan, what it offers really is a future for rural areas in terms of choice and opportunity. And if I think about break it down into terms of from a business perspective and from a consumer perspective, businesses in rural Ireland, I suppose, if I think about the small to medium sized businesses, it really gives them access to customers and tools. And if I think about the technologies and applications that are available, having connectivity, once you have connectivity, you can really start to take advantage that there are no boundaries in terms of how you can market, sell, deliver services or products. And that's probably been one of the biggest challenges for rural businesses, whether you're a startup or you're an established business, trying to service customers outside of your own geography. And I think bringing connectivity and that platform really enables the utilization of software as a service type platforms, which enables them to market and communicate with customers anywhere in the world. And if I look today at where we are with COVID-19, in the past, I suppose when you think about starting a business, whatever type of business it is, and you look at your market and how you're going to sell to your customers, traditionally it would have been about reliability. How reliable can you deliver your service? And do you need to be based in a city where you have access to what I would see as you talk about connectivity? It's not just about fiber, it's about the ability to deliver products and services, whether that's over the internet or whether it's transporting packages around the world. We've over the last 20, 30, 40 years, globalization, we've centralized everything into hubs. And I think COVID-19 has shown us that location doesn't matter anymore. We've all started to work remotely. People are moving back to where they grew up, and they're still able to deliver their services and manage businesses, so long as connectivity is there. So for me, I look at the NBP and our role as National Broadband Ireland is about delivering that reliable connectivity and limitless connectivity across rural Ireland. And look, we've all seen it with packages being delivered 7 days a week at all hours of the morning and night. We've seen that the infrastructure is working for remote working, and therefore we have to take advantage of it. And I think if I look at that equally in terms of the consumer and home users, and it's the same for education as well. I mean, we have to take advantage of the fact, and I look at Ireland in particular, our third level education in Ireland ranks as the second in Europe. One of the things the Irish government did many years ago was to commit to affordable third level education. So today we have 43% of people in Ireland between 25 and 64 with a third level degree, and that's even higher for those between 25 and 34. It's over 50%, 52%. So you look at the commitment towards third level education. I think that's one of the areas we have to take advantage. People are committed to doing third level. We have to support that in terms of connectivity and the availability of content. So, if I look at our commitment to third level education, people commit to going to third level, but access to content is more critical now, and training people up in qualifications and certifications that can be used and that are applicable to jobs today. I mean, we all went to college. We got a foundation of education, but the learning really happened on the job or in your career. And I think that's one of the things we have to bring into third level education. We start to bring in some of that practical content, and having access to connectivity is critical for that. And so if we have access to the internet and it's reliable, it's the content and applications that we bring forward, whether it's a business or education. I think is going to be critical to the future of Ireland, and the MBP is that underlying infrastructure. It's no different than the road and rail networks that were built many years before.
It's interesting though that you mentioned education, because I think that's going to be a major factor to the next question I wanted to ask you, which is really about how the MBP will contribute to the growth of the Irish economy. And how do you feel the COVID emergency has affected that? Has it intensified the need for 100% fibre penetration on this road to recovery?
I think it has. I mean, we definitely, as a country, we always punch above our weight. And if I look at the number of international companies basing themselves out of Ireland, one of the things that we will have shortage of is people. Qualified people, educated people, talent, real talent. So I think by having a national, high-speed, ubiquitous broadband network, it means that that reliability, people can work anywhere in the country. So access to talent no longer becomes about where you live or where you can move to. So I think we're empowering the nation by bringing fibre to everybody in the country, which means that multinationals coming to Ireland know that they have access to resources no matter where you live in the country. So I think it's critical.
Phil, a question for you now. Given Nokia's experience, what sort of new services can we look forward to with Ireland's CSPs utilising MBI's network?
Yeah, well, this is such a fantastic. Let me first say, it's such a fantastic program. Delivering national connectivity. If we haven't realised how important that was now after last year, we never will. I mean, it's so critical to the way we live our lives, whether from a personal basis, from your businesses, for governments, and for societies. Having good connectivity is just so critical to bridging the digital divide. And so when we look globally around these kind of initiatives, whether it be in the UK, in Europe, in the US. This NBI program and what we're trying to do in Ireland is at the forefront of that thinking, and the importance of this, of having broadband for keep people connected for their work. We talked about education. Look, we've all been at home trying to do our homeschooling for our kids, and we're trying to do that in some areas with very little connectivity, or connectivity as little as 2 meg, 4 meg. And when you've got 2 or 3 children trying to access online Teams or Zoom connectivity with their teachers, it's virtually impossible. And it's making already a very challenging situation even harder. So being able to deliver, let's say 500 times as fast connectivity, maybe a gig even further to 10 and 25 gig, you can see how transformational that's going to be as we try and deal with, as we say, working from home, training, and helping our, in particular our kids do their online schooling right now. And that's just the start. We touched on not just the education, innovation is critical. When we think about, as Peter was saying earlier, the connectivity for the home, for education, we can think about that in the context of the new, Facebook garages being set up. Imagine how to do that actually with a 1 gig, 10 gig connectivity, where you can do virtual reality at home, where you can embrace things like augmented reality to build the more complex computer systems that we're going to need, or maybe even make energy systems. If we think about the energy of the future as we start to move to disaggregated energy generation at home, this connectivity, this need to be able to connect these innovative new ideas is going to be an absolute fundamental foundation for education, for innovation, for businesses going forward. So it's an exciting time. And we haven't even talked about 5G yet, and I'm sure we'll get onto that a little bit later on in the conversation. So the island, this connectivity, what we're trying to achieve here is very exciting.
Peter, to go back to you, as a fibre and digital infrastructure wholesaler, how do you see MBI evolving in years to come, and how do you see CSPs using the MBP to enhance connectivity and services for end customers?
I suppose I look at, we've obviously got to build the network first. I think that's the priority, that we deliver the infrastructure that is going to be future-proofed. And when I look at future-proofing that infrastructure, it's really about, as Phil said, it's providing the capacity that's needed in the future. Today we're launching with 500 megabits per second as the minimum speed on the network, but even the infrastructure we've deployed today, we could support up to 10 gigabits on the equipment that we're putting in the home today, plus at the core of our network. and pretty easily we can upgrade that to 25 gigabits per second per home. Now that seems crazy. What would you need 25 gig for potentially at home today? But I look at the world as becoming more distributed, and that's no different with computing and connectivity as it would be with power. I mean, what we can do at home in terms of generating our own power in the future and feeding to the grid is a bit like what we can do in terms of home from a computing perspective, in terms of distributed computing. And so I do believe that the future-proofing piece of this infrastructure is critical. And from an NBI perspective, it's making sure that we commit that the infrastructure we deploy today will support all of the requirements for ubiquitous connectivity over 25 years and beyond. So look, the one thing we know is we don't know how much is going to be needed in the future, but no doubt innovation is going to push those boundaries, and we have to meet those demands. And I suppose the whole concept of the National Broadband Plan is to ensure that rural communities get the same advantages and benefits as urban communities. So that's the underlying commitment as a wholesale operator in this project.
And Phil, from your perspective, how do you envisage using the MVP to enhance connectivity and services for the customers?
Yeah, as Peter said, ensuring that we have this kind of foundational connectivity in urban, in rural and suburban areas is absolutely critical, because the future innovations for Ireland are going to be underpinned by this fibre technology. So one example is 5G, as I touched on earlier. 5G is a fundamental re-architecture of how we're going to deliver mobile services. And when we think about where 4G came to the market, which seems like a few years ago now, actually some of the use cases that underpinned 4G weren't entirely clear, but it worked out as we got to know the technology, understood the impact it had. It'll be the same with 5G, it'll be the same with fibre. And of course, as we know, 5G is underpinned as a fibre technology because we need to get that low latency, high bandwidth into the ground as soon as possible. And so when we think about 5G, we can also think about transforming not just the consumer experience through phones and download speeds and, as I said, kind of AR and VR during the phone, but actually in terms of how that's going to underpin transforming our enterprises. And so, Ireland, where we've got factories, sometimes in suburban and rural areas, where actually we can move to factories of the future, robots controlled using an integrated 5G and fibre solution, where actually we've got maybe hundreds or thousands of robots controlling that manufacturing plant, delivering not just a safer environment, but actually massively improved productivity. And so, we can't really underplay the game-changing reality of this fibre deployment that's happening in Ireland right now, and the innovation, the change, not just the consumer, whether the fibre to home, but also for businesses for Ireland in terms of being at the forefront of global innovation.
It really is an absolutely fascinating time for Irish connectivity, and I really look forward to seeing the National Broadband Plan's next steps. Phil and Peter, thank you both very much for your time today. If you want to hear more about the importance of enhanced connectivity throughout Ireland and the progress of the National Broadband Plan, Phil and Peter will both be presenting sessions at our upcoming virtual event, Connected Ireland. The conference will take place on the 11th of February from 10 a.m. to 12 GMT, and it's free to register. So visit the Total Telecom website for more information.